Welcome to Biff's Mystery Theater. I have many tales to tell you. Ghost stories, murder stories, and tales that will make your bones chill. Join me, won't you? For Theater of the Mind, where you always have the best seat in the house. Now close your eyes and turn off the lights.
Yes, Roma wines taste better because only Roma selects from the world's greatest wine reserves for your pleasure. That's R-O-M-A, Roma wines. Those better-tasting California wines enjoyed by more Americans than any other wine. For friendly entertaining, for delightful dining. Yes, right now, a glassful would be very pleasant as Roma wines bring you Agnes Moorehead in a remarkable tale of suspense.
We were driving too fast, but I knew that if I slowed down at all, I would begin to tremble. And so, although the road was tortuous, climbing steeply up the mountain, I kept my foot pressed hard on the gas pedal. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see that my husband was looking quietly into the green valley far below. He looked peaceful now. He had made his speech about driving too fast. I'd asked him to be quiet, and now he was quiet. I wondered what he would do if I stopped the car and told him right then that we were driving up to the Johnson house so that I might kill him. I parked the car on the highway at the foot of the dirt road leading up to the house. We walked quickly behind the heavy trees. My husband stopped once to wipe the dust off his shoes. I hurried him on, and we soon arrived at the front door. As planned, I'd forgotten the key. I did open my purse and look, however, and that gave me the opportunity to release the safety catch on the gun I had borrowed from my husband's belongings. I suggested that we try one of the windows. He agreed, and we slowly made our way through the underbrush that was growing wild at the side of the stucco building until we reached a first-floor window. The window was set high above the ground, and my husband had to stretch his body to reach it. I waited until he had his back to me, with his hands raised high in the air, reaching for the window frame. Then I opened my purse, took out the gun, aimed very carefully at a spot just in the center of his left shoulder blade, and pulled the trigger 4 times. He didn't fall right away. He had had his fingers over the window ledge, ready to unfasten the catch when the bullets hit him. With some terrible effort, he dug his nails into the stucco and tried to keep from dying. I couldn't move. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt paralyzed. He tried to turn his face and look at me, but he hadn't that much life left. At last, he said, I stopped screaming finally. Felt better for it. I bent and looked at my husband's body. He was quite dead. I wiped off the gun, his gun, and threw it behind an acacia bush. Then I walked back to the car, slowly and carefully removing any of my footprints which showed in the loose dirt of the road. At the car, I emptied some cigarette butts from the dashboard ashtray onto the road, dusted my shoes, then turned around and drove home. I put the car in the garage, went in and had my shower, and lay down in the library to wait. A few minutes after the grandfather clock struck 11, the telephone rang. Hello?
Miss Skinner?
This is she.
This is Jonathan Brown, Sheriff's Office. I have some bad news for you.
My husband?
Yes, ma'am. He's been killed. Miss Skinner? Hello, Miss Skinner. You all right?
I waited quietly for a moment. Then I let the phone fall to the floor. I listened until I heard Jonathan Brown hang up. Then I replaced my telephone on its stand. Went into the kitchen for some ice, which I put in a large Turkish towel. I then arranged myself carefully and attractively on the living room divan. And waited again.
Miss Skinner.
In here, please.
Oh, yes. Thank you. You all right, Miss Skinner? That was a stupid thing for me to do, breaking the news that way, you know.
I'm all right.
Well, I came over as soon as you dropped the phone.
Well, I felt faint suddenly.
Well, ain't no wonder.
Tell me what happened, Mr.
Brown, Jonathan Brown, Sheriff's Office.
Mr. Brown, please sit down.
Oh, thank you. Well, your husband was up at the Johnson house this afternoon, as well as we can figure. Up there on the side of the mountain, you know, and he must have been trying to get into the window, and somehow somebody, well, shot him. You sure you want me to tell you?
I'm sorry. Go on, please.
Well, we looked around the place, couldn't see anything. Though we found the, weapon, it was a gun, found in the brush near where he was, and no footprints or anything, except tire marks down the main highway and a bunch of cigarette butts where someone must have been sitting in the car, waiting, you know.
Those were my tire marks.
You was up there?
Well, I had an appointment to meet my husband this afternoon at the foot of the road leading up to the Johnson house. He had said that he'd had some business to attend to and would get a ride with this other person. He was very mysterious about it.
Oh?
I waited for an hour or more at the foot of the road. You were so clever to recognize the meaning of those cigarette stubs.
Well,
when he didn't come, I thought perhaps I was mistaken about the appointment. And so I drove home. Oh, to think of it. Perhaps I'd gone up to the house, I might have saved my poor dear husband's life.
They're not terrible shock, I know.
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'll be all right.
Well, now, don't you worry about a thing, Miss Skinner. The sheriff's office will round up the guilty party or parties and have them brought to trial, you know.
Yes, I'm sure.
I slept well that night for the first time in 10 years. My husband during his lifetime had snored loudly and steadily, and during his later years he had acquired the nervous and distressing habit of grinding his teeth in his sleep. This night all was quiet and peaceful in the house, in my house. And as I say, I slept beautifully. The next few days were also beautifully quiet. A few photographers and newspaper men, but they were kind and gentle and didn't make too much bother. Finally, Mr. Jonathan Brown called to say that he would send a car for me on Friday morning, the next day, as it turned out, to take me to the coroner's inquest. The small courtroom was crowded, and almost everyone there eyed me with great sympathy. The inquest proceeded evenly. There was as yet no evidence as to the identity of my husband's murderer. I again stated that I had left the tire marks and cigarette stubs at the foot of the road that led to the Johnson house. No, I hadn't heard a shot. No, my dear husband had no enemy. Then...
I've had this blackboard brought to court so that I might show the position of the body when found. I think it might be of interest.
Very well. Proceed.
The body is found just below the first-story window on the left side of the house. The dead man was obviously trying to gain admittance, you know. He didn't die immediately, as I will show you, but stayed alive long enough to try to keep himself from falling, since marks from each of his fingernails were found running down the side of the building. Here, then, is the windowsill, and here are the marks of his fingernails, and here is the spot where the body lay when it was discovered. And here is the house.
As he talked, he watched me.
Ground floor.
And I didn't know why until I heard the first scrape of the chalk against the blackboard. For one awful moment, it was the sound that had been made by my husband as he tried so desperately to hold himself alive. I found myself tightly holding the wooden table in front of me, my arms and body tense, trying not to faint.
Since a large deposit of the dried stucco from the building was found under each of the victim's fingernails, I believe I can best illustrate the manner of the victim's last moments with a physical illustration. Suppose I am the victim, and this blackboard is the side of the building. We hear the gunshots, and then the victim slowly sinks to the ground.
Oh, please, I can't, sir. Please, don't make that alive.
For suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you Agnes Moorehead in The 13th Sound. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Ken Niles for Roma Wines. Tomorrow, on Valentine's Day, delight your Valentine with a gift that's smart, lavish, and in perfect taste. Say it with Roma Champagne, traditional wine of romance. Brilliant, bubbling Roma Champagne is an unforgettable token of your thoughtfulness. For pale gold, sprightly dry Roma California Champagne, made by the world-famous Charmant bulk process, is sparkling wine at its finest. Yes, to make any golden moment live forever, say it with Roma Champagne. And remember, you enjoy an exclusive difference, a better taste in Roma Champagne. For Roma crushes only the choicest grapes, especially selected for fine champagne. Then Roma vintners' unmatched skill, the magic of necessary time, and America's finest winemaking resources guide this grape treasure to rare taste luxury. Finally, from the famed Roma Champagne cellars to you comes better tasting Roma Champagne. So this Valentine's Day, say it with Roma. Roma Champagne, golden masterpiece of Roma, the greatest name in wine.
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood sound stage Agnes Moorehead as Mrs. Sally Skinner and William Johnstone as Jonathan Brown in The 13th Sound. A tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
I must have been taken home from the inquest. For the next consciousness I had, I was lying on the guest bed. In the corner sat Mr. Jonathan Brown. He must have seen my eyes open.
Feeling better?
Yes, thank you. I'm terribly sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Quite a strain,
Yes, it was quite a strain.
Coroner asked whether it'd be all right to go on without you. Everybody seemed agreed, so we finished up while the doc looked you over.
What happened?
Oh, he said you'd be all right. Shock.
I meant about my husband.
And his death at the hand of persons unknown,
Is there anything further I must do?
Not a thing, Miss Skinner.
It's been very kind.
Well, it's a terrible thing happened to you. Well, I'm going now, if there's nothing more you need from me.
No, nothing, thank you.
Well, goodbye then, and don't you worry. We'll find who did it,
After he had left, I had the time to be angry at myself for my behavior at the inquest. What must the people have thought? To faint only from the noise of a piece of chalk on a blackboard? I wondered if Mr. Brown had suspected anything, because as I remembered back to earlier afternoon, he had been watching me as he drew those silly little diagrams on the board. He hadn't been looking anywhere else, not at the coroner or at any of the reporters, not even at what he was doing. He'd been looking at me. Well, of course he was looking at me. He was showing his sympathy. I slowly allowed myself to return to my former position in the community. I was able now to do the things I'd always wanted to do, but had been restrained from doing by a certain attitude of my husband's. He had never liked entertaining. He didn't believe that we should belong to the country club and take a civic pride in the fact that our home was the largest and most beautiful in the community. In fact, it was his desire to sell our lovely home that caused me to finally take that complete and drastic step. The first evening that I accepted an outside invitation was for one of the Wednesday night evenings of bridge at our club. At my table were the president of the bank and his wife. As I sat down, I noticed that a window pane on my left was shattered.
Evening, Miss Gray. Miss Gray.
Well, good evening, Mr. Brown.
Miss Skinner.
Good evening, Mr. Brown.
Well, I'm afraid I'm the culprit here. Playing ball with the kids this afternoon, and I threw one right through your lovely window.
Oh, really?
Yes. But I got old Sam here. I brought him along with a new pane of glass, and he'll fix us up shipshape in no time at all. Go ahead, Sam, right over there.
Yes, Mr. Brown, sure. Don't mind me, folks. I'll be through here in just a jiffy. Don't worry about it.
Oh, incidentally, Miss Skinner, I always meant to ask you whether or not you minded noises, especially. Sharp noises, like, say, chalk on a blackboard.
I don't understand. Chalk on a blackboard?
At the inquest, I always wondered about it. You fainted just when the chalk was scratching across the blackboard.
I don't remember hearing it. I'm afraid I fainted before you drew any diagrams. I assume that's what you were planning to do, draw a diagram?
That's what I was planning to do, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Does he have to do that?
There's something wrong, Mr. Skinner?
Does he have to do that?
Mrs. Skinner.
I can't. I didn't. I stayed at home for the next few days. I canceled all appointments. The heat really was unbearable. In October, I resumed my activities. I began to see people again. I grew especially interested in chamber music. Through my activity, I arranged a musical evening to be given by a group of which I was the second vice president. They planned the formation of a Philharmonic Society eventually. I went to the music hall alone, and I was studying my program when...
Is this seat taken?
Well, good evening, Mr. Brown.
Well, Miss Skinner, good evening. Didn't recognize you, ma'am.
Well, I was to be joined later.
Well, I'll just sit here a moment, then. You know, I'm terribly sorry about the other night.
It's really nothing at all for you to be sorry about.
Very kind of you to say that, you know, but I do feel guilty as all sin, being the cause of you getting sick like that.
Really, Mr. Brown, I wasn't sick at all.
Well,
Mr. Gregg told me I'd probably been affected by the heat. It was very close in the club that night, if you'll remember.
Yes, well, it was. Well, just so I don't feel it was my fault, you know.
No, I don't want you to feel that it was your fault.
That's very kind of you, you know. If you don't mind, I'll stay here until whoever holds the seat gets it, all right?
That's all right.
We crave your indulgence and a certain open-mindedness for giving a fair chance to the first piece with which we're going to open our program this evening. The title of this piece is The 13th Sound, and the composer is young Julian Carrillo. This piece, because of the unorthodox nature of it, created a veritable furor in New York City some weeks ago on the occasion of its premiere. It's what you'd call, I guess, modern music. And the really unusual thing about it is that the instruments, instead of playing as they usually do in Mozart, Haydn, and such classical veins, play in quarter tones. Now, a quarter tone is somewhere in between the other tones, such as we are accustomed to hearing. So on this following piece, the instruments are not playing, as you would think, out of tune. This is the way it is supposed to sound. Thank you. So now the various members of the quartet will tune their various instruments into these quarter tones, and this is quite a short piece, but I know you're going to like it. Tune up, gentlemen.
This should be very interesting. Think so, Miss Skinner? 13th Sound. Have you heard it?
No, I haven't.
It's too hard again, Miss Skinner? It does get stuffy in here, you know.
Well, I'm not.
It's hot in here.
Terribly peaky. You sure you're all
I'm
right?
quite all right. Excuse me. Will you let me out? Will you please excuse me? I left Mr. Brown sitting there. My man drove me home. I never liked modern music. I locked all the doors and I turned on all the lights. And then I did a foolish thing. I found a hammer and a piece of board. And I beat and beat and beat and beat on the board with a hammer as hard as I could. And finally the heavy, steady, safe pounding that I made drove the other sharp, shrill, awful noise from my mind. Then I turned out all the lights and opened the windows and went to sleep. I didn't sleep well, but I didn't stay awake either. I hadn't set the alarm next to my bed, and when I first awoke the next morning, for a minute I couldn't remember what had happened. I felt drugged. I got out of bed and put on the lovely chartreuse brocade housecoat and started downstairs. The sun was shining outside. It was a beautiful day. Not the sort of day when you could be disturbed by unrelated noises. I felt grand when I got downstairs. Then I heard... What? I didn't know. I didn't care. I knew only that I had to stop it before it happened to me again. Stop it! Please, stop it!
Pardon me, Miss...
Get out of here! Get out of here! Who told you to do your work here? Did someone tell you to make that noise near my house?
Why, no, ma'am. The lawnmower darn thing wasn't cut, and I had to
Get out! Go on! Get off this property at once!
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Go!
Sure, I didn't know.
Come back, you hear? Don't ever come back! Don't!
Morning, Miss Skinner. Lovely day.
I turned and ran. Right back to my living room. I stood shivering there in the beam of sunlight. I waited for him to come bursting into the room after me. I waited. And then the doorbell rang. Who is it?
It's Mrs. Gray.
Oh, just a moment. Come in.
But did I disturb you?
Oh, no.
Well, then
not
I
at all.
will come in. But I can only stay a minute.
Would you like some coffee?
Oh, no, thank you. When I was so sick, you remember, the doctor absolutely forbid me having any more coffee.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, sit down, please.
Do you drink much coffee?
No, why do you ask?
Well, I thought perhaps your recent attacks might have been caused by that. Mr. Gregg is a great one for aspirin and salt tablets. I think it's much simpler than that. Cut out coffee.
Well, I think my attacks were just caused by this heat. I planned a sea voyage.
Oh, how splendid. That'll certainly fix you. You know, I don't mean to be disrespectful, heaven knows. But perhaps on the boat, you might meet a fine young man who... Well...
Perhaps.
Oh, when do you plan to leave?
This afternoon. I'm leaving for New York.
Oh, you can't.
Pardon?
For the clubhouse, the unveiling ceremonies are this afternoon.
Oh, I'd forgotten.
Well, you simply can't leave. We have no one who can replace you on the speaker's platform.
Oh, well, all right then, Mrs. Gregg. I'll stay for the ceremony. I drove to the new clubhouse with Mr. and Mrs. Gregg. The building was really very lovely. It was almost ready for occupancy. We were unveiling a heroic figure which graced the entranceway. Our speaker's platform was built alongside the figure, and quite a few of the members and their families were sitting on the wooden benches in the front patio, waiting for the ceremonies to begin.
Isn't this exciting?
Oh, yes, very.
You ladies have done a marvelous job.
Oh, thank you.
What's that fellow doing up there?
Where?
See, up on the roof there, that truckman.
Oh, yes. Makes me nervous to see people at such heights.
Awfully close to the edge. I guess he knows his business, I imagine.
Yes, I suppose it...
I'm very anxious to hear your little talk, Mrs. Skinner.
Well, thank you.
I think you've managed admirably since your unfortunate... Well, you understand.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I think we should get on with it, eh?
Well, I believe it'll be only a few more minutes.
What?
What is it? What is it?
Good heavens, look, that workman. He's going to fall.
Can't someone catch him? He's hanging on the ledge. Oh.
Some of the men are running up there now.
But they've got to catch him.
Oh, they will.
They got to catch him.
What?
Oh.
He's falling.
Oh.
Oh, turn your eyes, ladies. Turn your eyes.
I
Why, nonsense, Mrs. Skinner. You had nothing to do with
I
it.
did it! I did it! I killed him!
Why?
I
Not
killed
hurt
him!
at all.
I did it! I killed him!
You're not well.
I did
Here.
it! Listen to
Let me
me!
take you
Oh,
home.
listen to me! Listen
You'll
to
be
me!
all right.
Listen to me! I killed him! Listen to me! Don't you understand? I killed him, Mr. Brown! Make him stop the noise! Did you hear it? I killed him! I killed him!
I know, ma'am. It's going to be all right, you know. You just come along with me.
Sign it, Jonathan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shame. Yeah, people do funny things.
Yeah. Did you pay the fella?
Mm-hmm. He's clever, very clever.
Sure is. I really thought he was falling off of that building.
Used to be an acrobat.
Oh. Say, how did he make that noise?
Yeah. Holding tenpenny nails in his hands. Scraped them along the face of the building as he slid down.
Yeah, did you think of that, too?
Mm-hmm.
Made an awful racket.
Mm-hmm. Pretty nice lady, you know.
Yeah.
What the devil are you doing?
Oh, fixing my nails, I guess.
Well, cut it out, will you?
Sure. What's the matter with you?
Noise makes me nervous, I guess. You know?
Suspense. Presented by Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Roma, America's favorite wines. This is Ken Niles returning for a curtain call with a brilliant star of tonight's suspense play, Agnes Moorehead. Apparently, Agnes, you're not superstitious, accepting the lead in a play called The 13th Sound on February 13th.
Superstitions are no phobia with me, Ken, but I do have one.
What is it?
I refuse to give a party for 13 people.
Yes, but even a 13th guest is in luck, Agnes, when you serve Roma Port. Ruby red, fragrant, nectar-sweet Roma California Port adds warmth to the welcome for everyone. And Roma Port is so easy to serve. You simply pour, and hospitality reigns.
Yes, Ken, Roma Port does make entertaining a pleasure.
Not only that, Agnes, there's a difference you can taste in all Roma wines. And this better taste begins with the choicest grapes in all California. Then Roma's unmatched skill and winemaking resources guide these luscious grapes unhurriedly to tempting taste perfection. Later, Roma places this rich taste treasure with Roma wines of years before. And finally, Roma selects from the world's greatest wine reserves for your pleasure.
Well, it's easy to see why Roma wines taste better, Ken.
Yes, Agnes, and here's the most conclusive proof of all. A gift basket of Roma wines for you and your guests to enjoy with the compliments of Roma, the greatest name in wine.
I'm delighted, Ken. Thank you very much. And good night.
Tonight's suspense play was written by Kathy and Elliot Lewis. Next Thursday, same time, you will hear Ann Baxter as star of Suspense.
Produced and directed by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. Stay tuned for the thrilling adventures of the FBI in peace and war, following immediately over most of these stations.
In the coming weeks, Suspense will present such stars as James Stewart, William Bendix, Eddie Bracken, and others. Make it a point to listen each Thursday to Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Suspense. This is the Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. In our starring Hollywood cast tonight are Mr. John Sutton, who appears as a young English doctor, Jim Norwood, who knew a great deal more than he admitted concerning the strange events which we are about to relate. And Mr. George Zucco, who plays the village curate, the Reverend Arthur Morley. Our story, and it bears none but a coincidental resemblance to H.G. Wells' famous short novel, The Invisible Man, is by John Dixon Carr, and is called The Man Without a Body, tonight's tale of suspense. If you have been with us on these Tuesday nights, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you. And so it is with The Man Without a Body and the performances of John Sutton and George Zucco. We again hope to keep you in suspense. A lonely beach of low white sand hills edged by the surf of the North Sea. And back from the beach, drowsing as it has drowsed for 10 centuries, lies the village of Aldbridge in Suffolk. There is the seawall, now defaced by air raid shelters. And there are the rolling grain fields, the thatched white cottages, the spire of St. Luke's Church above the oak trees. Ancient and bell-haunted, lost among hedgerows, this village could never cause consternation in London newspaper offices. And yet, on that warm night nearly 4 years ago...
This time it's really happened. A man without a body, completely invisible.
Copy, boy. Copy, boy. Look at this dispatch. Reign of Terror in Suffolk Village. Has another of H.G. Wells' romances come true?
An invisible man? I can't believe it.
What's the matter with that village? They all gone scatty? Mr. George Wellman, builder, states that as he was returning home along the main road from Bury St. Edmunds...
He distinctly saw a man's hat, without any head under it, moving towards him about 6 feet above the ground.
George must have been full of beer. We can't use this story. Copy, boy! Even more surprising evidence was given by the Reverend Arthur Morley, vicar of St. Luke's Church. Who? The parson? You don't think he was full of beer? One question above all agitates the village. Who is Professor Ansmith? Who is this elderly American, said to be an inventor, who has settled at Aldbridge and leased a part of the house belonging to the local doctor? Out of some terrifying workshop, to strike like a maniac where least expected, has there at last emerged...
A real invisible man?
The Church of St. Luke, Aldbridge, on that same Sunday evening. The evening service is over now, though an echo of bells still lingers. In the vestry at the rear of the church, where white surplices hang like ghosts, the Reverend Arthur Morley sits with his daughter Janice. It is a stone room of painted windows, now many-colored in the sunset. And here as the drowsy summer light turns to dusk.
Janice, I don't believe it.
I know, Father.
I saw it with my own eyes, yet I don't believe it. You don't think we were dreaming, do you?
No, Father. We weren't dreaming.
If this goes on, the whole village will be in a frenzy. But what can I do?
We could go to Professor Ansmith and ask him straight out.
Ask him whether he's responsible for these...
Yes.
I wonder, Janice. The man isn't hurting anybody, you know. You couldn't ask for a quieter person or a better neighbor. And yet... What's that?
Father, you are upset. It's only Mr. Emmett coming down from the belfry.
Emmett? Oh, yes, of course. Is that you, Mr. Emmett?
It's me, all right, sir. And very much in the flesh. Did you think I was the invisible man?
Mr. Emmett, I forbid you to mention that subject.
Very good, sir. But there's others, begging your pardon, that do mention it.
Oh, yes, forgive me. I spoke too sharply.
Oh, that's all right, sir. No harm done, no bones broken. Mind you not that I hold with this talk about invisible men. It ain't natural, I say. It ain't hardly Christian. I'm a greengrocer by trade, and I believe in what I can weigh and feel and...
What's the matter, Mr. Emmett? Is anything wrong?
Excuse me, sir. And you too, miss. Do you see anybody in this room except us?
No, of course not. Why?
Because I could have sworn something brushed past me just now.
You're imagining things, Mr. Emmett.
Yes, sir, I dare say.
There's
but,
nobody hidden in the Belfry Tower, I hope.
No, sir. I had a look-see. And what's more, there's not going to be anybody up there once I've locked the door. Now, let the blighter try and get in.
Oh, please, Mr. Emmett. And you too, Father. You're talking about this invisible man as though he actually existed.
There's something funny going on, miss. You can't deny that.
No, none of us can deny it.
And what's more, sir, it's getting pretty dark in here. Hadn't you and Miss Janice better get along to the vicarage while I lock up?
No, we can't go just yet, Mr. Emmett. We're expecting Dr. Norwood.
Dr. Jim Norwood, sir? What does he say about all this?
Oh, you might ask him yourself, Mr. Emmett. I think that's probably him now. Come in. The vestry door's not locked.
Oh, hello, Padre. Hello, Janice. I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, hello, Jim. You seem a good deal out of breath.
I am out of breath, Janice, because there's blue blazes to pay down in the village.
Not more trouble.
Yes, I'm afraid so. They're holding a mass meeting at the Coach and Horses, and they're ready to murder Professor Ansmith. If this invisible man cuts any more capers, we may see a real old-fashioned lynching in an English village.
Now, look here, my boy. This has got to stop.
I know that, Padre, but how are we going to stop it?
Sit down there, Jim, across the table from me.
Yes, sir.
First of all, what do you know about this Professor Ansmith?
Nothing, sir. Nothing at all.
But you rent part of your house to him.
Oh, my dear Padre, that house is twice as big as I can possibly manage. I was only too glad to get a tenant.
He gave you references, I imagine?
Yes, but I didn't bother to check them. He's a quiet old boy. Pays his rent on the dot. Never does anything except read and go for long walks.
Are you quite sure of that, Jim?
The village has war nerves, that's all. With the camouflage aerodrome in the neighborhood, they're apt to imagine anything.
True, perhaps, but...
That talk about dynamos humming in the old boy's room and blue lights flashing is rubbish out of a sensational film. They imagine the whole thing. Finally, this crazy story about an invisible man playing the gramophone. Why,
it's not a crazy story, Jim. Janice and I saw it happen.
You what?
Last night, about 9:30, Janice and I were out for a walk in the lane that runs past your house. On the way, we met Willie Kendrick, and he joined us.
Well, sir?
Listen, Jim. On that side of the house, there's a little square room with 2 windows and no furniture except a round table and a couple of chairs. Do you know the one we mean?
Yes, of course. Professor Ansmith uses it. What about the room?
It wasn't quite blackout time. The windows were up, the curtains weren't drawn, and the room was brightly lighted. On the table stood an old-fashioned gramophone with a horn and a crank handle. Beside it lay a pair of white cotton gloves, like gardener's gloves. The gramophone was playing away for dear life, but there was nobody in the room. Janice thought that was a bit odd, a gramophone going full tilt with nobody there, and called my attention to it. Just then, the gramophone started to run down. We could hear the record slow and go off key. As it did so...
Well, sir, go on.
As it did so, those white gloves got up off the table.
Got up off the table?
Got up off the table, took hold of the gramophone, and wound it up again.
Mr. Emmett, what on earth are you doing?
I dropped some candlesticks.
So I see. Please pick them up again.
Yes.
Padre, are you serious?
Perfectly serious.
A pair of gloves without any hands inside them?
Yes.
But what did they do exactly?
The left-hand glove steadied the gramophone. The right-hand glove wound it up. Then they both hung in the air, beating time to the music. It should have been funny. I can only assure you it was not funny.
Oh, what happened then?
Oh, Jim, it was horrible. Willie Kendrick let out a yell and ran down the lane between the apple trees as though the devil were after him.
I can't say I blame him.
Father and I just stood there and...
Stared is the word, my dear.
Yes, stared. I can't forget any of it. The 3-legged table and the whirling record and the blue flowers on the wallpaper. But there was nobody there. We could see past the table and under the table and all over the room. And there was nobody there.
Except the man without any body.
Confound the man without any body.
Father, suppose it is true.
As a clergyman, my dear, I prefer to remain agnostic. This thing's a trick.
Yes, but how's it done and why?
That's the whole point, Jim. What worries me is the effect on our people here. We call ourselves intelligent, and yet, look at us. Even Mr. Emmett there.
Hey, what's that about me, sir?
A few minutes ago, you thought something brushed past you when you were coming down the stairs from the bell tower. Now, didn't you?
Well, yes, sir.
You see what I mean, Jim?
But I didn't really think so, sir. Not really. It was imagination, just like the doctor said. Because I searched that tower. I locked the door afterwards.
Exactly. But the mere force of suggestion, nothing more, might lead you to believe.
That's not suggestion, Father.
Sir, I'll stake my Bible oath there's nobody in that belfry.
Bells can't ring by themselves, old man. There's somebody pulling the rope up there, and we're going to find out who it is.
Now, one moment, all of you.
What's wrong, Padre? You're as white as a ghost.
This blasphemous mockery, it seems, extends even to the church. Very well. You will stay with Janice, my boy. Emmett and I will collar this invisible man.
Why can't I go, too?
I don't believe in this, but I should prefer to have someone with Janice. You're not afraid, Mr. Emmett?
If it's alive, sir, I'm not afraid of it. And if it's dead, well, you're not afraid of it. The tower door's open, sir. I'm ready.
Don't do it, Father. Don't go.
You can't help them, Janice. Sit down here. Take it easy.
Jim Norwood, what's wrong with you?
Wrong with me?
You've got an odd look, too. And the light's fading. And the surplices look like ghosts. And in another minute, that bell would drive me mad. Suppose he has got in.
Who?
The invisible man.
Oh, don't talk rot.
As there are sounds that the ear cannot hear, so there are colors that the eye cannot see. I read that somewhere. He hasn't hurt anybody yet. But suppose he turns nasty and does hurt somebody.
He can't hurt anybody.
How do you know?
Janice, listen to me. Take my hand.
Oh, but Jim...
I want to tell you a few things you won't understand. I don't ask you to understand. I just ask you to remember.
Well, what is it?
The first is a question. If you were a government official and wanted to find an expert on camouflage, where would you go?
An expert on camouflage?
Yes. And the second point is this. I studied medicine in Germany.
Oh, I know that, but that's
One night on a bet, I hid backstage at the Winter Garden Theater in Berlin. I saw the whole show from backstage, and I learned a great deal.
Jim Norwood, what on earth are you talking
George
about?
Wellman and I have talked the whole thing over. In a way, Janice, there is an invisible man. I can tell you who he is and how he works. But there's no danger, do you understand? There's no danger at all.
Jim, what was that?
I don't know.
You do know. I can see it in your face. You do know.
I think somebody's fallen.
Fallen?
From the top of the belfry.
Father!
Stay here, Janice. You can't do any good.
Let go of my arm. I'm going up there.
Oh, you're not. I didn't think what the danger might be. Besides, there's somebody coming down the stairs now. Stay just where you are and don't move until...
Oh, Father. Father, are you all right?
Steady, sir. Take it easy now.
I'm perfectly all right, yes. But you'd better go into the churchyard and see to Emmett.
He fell?
No, Janice, he did not fall. He was thrown.
Oh.
Thrown? By whom?
There's no time to argue now. You're a doctor. Go out and see to him.
Well, is he in...
I don't know. Go.
Yes, sir.
For I will work a deed in your days which ye will not believe, though it be told you. Janice, this is incredible.
Why?
You heard the bell ring. I saw it ring.
Without anybody there?
I was as close to that bell as I am to you now. No hand held the rope. There were no strings or wires or any tricks to make it move. Yet it clanged back and forth alone in the tower. And I thought I heard someone laugh.
Laugh?
Oh, don't take that too seriously. We were both overwrought, and the noise of the bell was deafening.
What about Mr. Emmett?
Emmett yelled some words I couldn't hear and lunged for the bell. Then something caught him. Something caught him and gave him a sledgehammer blow in the back. That belfry's nothing but open arches. You heard him scream. I saw his face just before he went over.
Lock the door to the tower, Father. Lock it.
I can't lock it. Emmett has the key. But why should I lock it?
Because he's still in there.
He?
He hadn't done any harm before, but he's done harm now. There's no telling what might happen if he gets loose.
You mean?
I mean Professor Ann Smith's protege, whoever he is. The man without a body.
Under the red sunset, some quarter of a mile away, a grass-carpeted lane winds between rows of apple trees. The lane is dusky, though lights shine into it from the windows of a large stone house. Dr. Norwood's house beyond the apple trees. Up and down. Up and down, a shadowy figure is pacing. An elderly figure, dejected figure, tall and frail as a shadow among shadows, muttering to itself, shaking its head, now and then raising one fist in bewilderment or anguish. Sometimes the light gleams on large spectacles and a kindly mouth. Up and down, endlessly up and down strides Professor Ansmith.
I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty. How can I convince them that I'm not guilty? Who's there? I saw you dodge behind that tree. Stand out, sir.
Did you call me, Professor Ansmith?
Yes, I did call you. Who are you?
You probably won't recognize me, Professor Ansmith.
Nevertheless, my friend, may I ask what your name is?
My name is Wellman, Professor. George Wellman.
Wellman. I've heard that name.
Maybe you have. I'm a builder by trade, and a great friend of Dr. Norwood's.
Wait one moment. Aren't you the young man whose firm is putting up these air raid shelters along the seawall and making such an unholy din with your riveting machines?
That's me.
And come to think of it, aren't you the one who first started this alarm about an invisible man?
Yes, because I met him.
You did not meet him, sir. This whole thesis is scientific nonsense, and I won't have it.
You won't have what?
I'm an old man, Mr. Wellman. I never did anybody the least harm. As God is my judge, I know nothing whatever about this... What's that?
It looks like the vicar's car, Professor. You'd better stand back. This is a pretty narrow lane.
Ansmith! Professor Ansmith!
Yes, Mr. Morley, I hear you.
We thought you'd better drive over here straight away. I think you've met my daughter. And, of course, you know Dr. Norwood.
Yes,
but there's no time for any social formalities. Get into your house, Professor Ansmith. Get in quickly and close the shutters.
But why should I do that?
Because there's a mob coming, sir, and we can't stop them.
Hurry, do hurry.
A mob coming here? Why?
Haven't you heard the news?
I've heard nothing, my friend. The only person I've seen has been that young man there who chews a toothpick and hides behind the trees.
George Wellman? What on earth are you doing here?
Watching, Janice. Watching and waiting, just as usual.
Listen to me, Professor Ansmith. Henry Emmett, the head verger at St. Luke's, was thrown from the belfry window not 20 minutes ago.
Not by me, sir, I assure you. I had nothing to do with it.
No, not by you, but apparently by the invisible man.
Oh, Father in heaven, will this never stop?
Not till we catch the fellow. No.
Be quiet, Mr. Wellman, please.
I'm sorry, Padre. I take it back.
I myself can testify that no visible person laid hands on Emmett. He was struck as though with a gigantic fist. What's the matter, Professor Ansmith? Is anything wrong?
No. I was just thinking. Is Emmett dead?
Fortunately, no.
I'm glad of that, my friend, for a certain person's sake.
He's not even seriously hurt. The bell tower isn't high, and a tree broke the force of his fall. But he's badly shaken up, and that crowd at the Coach and Horses means trouble. If you haven't anything to say to us, if you haven't a word of explanation to utter...
Listen, Padre, don't you hear anything?
Yes, I thought I heard voices.
Can't be that crowd from the village. We're too far ahead of them.
It's a crowd, all right. And they've been here for hours.
But where? I don't see anybody.
Jim, look, behind the trees.
Look behind the trees. Look beyond the hedgerows. Look for any place where a watcher can hide.
And may I ask what they're doing here?
They're watching you, Professor Ansmith.
More of your spies, you mean?
You can call them anything you please. But they're getting impatient and they want a showdown. If I as much as hold my hand up like this... Don't throw stones at the windows, you fools! You're only breaking the doctor's window!
Gentlemen, I can't have any more of this. Be quiet, all of you, and listen to me.
Well, sir, we're listening.
I'm a peaceful man. I like to live in peace with my neighbors. I have nothing to do with this so-called reign of terror. But you don't believe that, do you?
No.
Then I must expose a fraud. Now, don't blame me if I expose the trickster, too. I have made preparations to show you the Invisible Man. The man without a body.
Quiet, everybody!
Mr. Morley, I believe you and your daughter walked through this lane last night while I was away at the Bury St. Edmunds.
I don't know about your being away, sir. My daughter and I were certainly here, yes.
Good. Miss Janice Morley.
Yes, Professor Ansmith.
Will you look toward your right, please, at the house? What do you see?
It's the same room.
What room?
The room with the little round table and the gramophone.
It's a three-legged table, you notice.
Yes, of course.
But there's nobody in the room.
No, nobody at all.
Are conditions exactly as they were last night?
Yes, except there aren't any gloves on the table.
No, but the Invisible Man is there.
Oh.
A living presence, ready to act and breathe and even kill. With your permission, I shall now address him. Hello in there. Hello in there. Hello in there.
If anybody answers him, Father, I'm going to scream.
Quiet, Janice, quiet.
Father, look. The gloves are appearing on the table.
I call out to him and I speak as follows. Hold the phonograph with your left glove. That's it. Turn the handle with your right. One turn, 2, 3, 4. That's enough. Touch the spring with your left hand. Push the record. Lower the needle with your right and... Ladies and gentlemen, the Invisible Man.
Hold him off! Hold, you fools! Don't you see?
On the contrary, let them throw all they like. Aim at the table, my friend. Aim at the table.
Why at the table?
Because then they'll see the trick.
I don't follow you. What trick?
The trick of the looking glasses. There. You see now, my friend?
I think I do.
The legs of the table form a triangle with its point toward you. Panels of looking glass are fitted in the two sides facing you.
What do you know about that?
You think you can see under the table, but what you actually see are the side walls of the room reflected in those two mirrors.
Oh, wait a minute. You mean...
I mean that my old servant, hidden behind the mirrors, has just been working the gloves to a panel in the tabletop. It's a very old trick, first shown by Colonel Stadair at the London Polytechnic.
And that's what happened last night?
Yes.
And you had nothing to do with it?
Nothing whatever, nor had my servant.
Then who did do it and why? What is the explanation of all this?
Well, I can't tell you why. That's what beats me. But I can tell you everything else.
This Invisible Man who's been scaring us all silly?
My dear young lady, there's no Invisible Man. There never has been.
I might believe that, Professor Ansmith, if I hadn't seen a church bell ringing where there was no hand to ring it. And poor old Emmett flung out of the tower as though a giant hand had got hold of him. You're not saying that was done with the looking glasses?
No, my friend, not at all. That was really clever.
Strings? Wires? Ropes?
No, they weren't necessary.
But the thing's impossible.
Oh, no. The same principle was used by my old friend J.N. Maskelyne to make mechanical figures work. Psycho played whist, and Zoe drew pictures. I myself,
Go on, sir. You yourself, what are you going to say?
The secret I was about to say remains unknown even today. You were right, in a way, when you tell us that Emmett acted as though a giant had got hold of him. A giant had got hold of him. At least, a gigantic force.
Oh, before we all go completely mad, would you mind telling us what this gigantic force was?
Not at all. It was compressed air.
Compressed air?
But don't you see it even yet, any of you?
No.
A compressed air pipe with 1,000 pounds pressure behind it was run up into the tower facing the bell. It could be operated from the ground outside. The pressure was turned on and off in bursts. It made that heavy bell swing like a toy. Emmett, don't you remember? Emmett rushed forwards towards the bell.
And the air pressure?
The air pressure struck him like a sledgehammer and flung him headlong out of the tower. There's your miracle, gentlemen. That's all there was to it.
Sir, I can't doubt what you say. It's too circumstantial and too right.
But what, my friend?
The compressed air tanks, the mechanical apparatus to work this trick.
Well, what about it?
Well, where did it come from? Such things don't grow on bushes.
No, but they do grow on riveting machines.
Riveting machines?
Yes, such as the riveting machine they're using on the air raid shelters along the seawall. Would you care to tell us, Dr. James Norwood, why you and your friend Wellman have been playing all these tricks?
All of you! Jim Norwood, is this true?
Why, of course it's true, Mr. Morley. Don't be so gullible.
Jim and George Wellman doing all this? I don't believe it.
Take a look at their faces, young lady. Did you ever see a guiltier-looking pair?
So we look guilty, do we?
Frankly, you do.
We played the whole game and convinced the village there was an invisible man. Is that it?
Yes. You worked the glove trick in your own house. And Wellman worked the air trick with his own equipment. Everything else was nothing but a pack of lies and a lot of atmosphere. Playing conjurers and making a blasted hash of it.
Is that all, Professor Ann Smith?
Well, remember, you brought this on yourself. I didn't want to expose you.
No, Professor. I bet you didn't.
Easy, George. Take it easy.
Jim, is this true?
Before you start pitching into me, Janice, let me have my word first. Do you remember what I said to you at the church tonight?
At the church?
Yes, I asked you to remember something, even if you didn't understand it. All right. Can you remember what it was?
Oh, Jim, please. You're only trying to evade this. Oh, I'm so confused now, I don't remember anything. All I can think of is this horrible business and what's behind it. Father can't believe his ears, and I'm not much better. We've practically idolized you. All we want you to do is answer a straight question. Jim, are these accusations true?
Yes, they are true.
Doubtless he had a good reason, Janice. Doubtless he had a good reason.
Yes, we had a good reason.
The very best reason in the world.
You had a good reason for scaring people half to death and trying to kill poor old Henry Emmett?
We didn't mean any harm against Emmett. That was an accident.
But you dare to defend yourself now?
Yes, just that.
Before we go home, Father, shall we apologize to Professor Ann Smith? I hope he'll try to think better of English hospitality.
Good, Janice, good. I hope he will, too.
You hope he will.
Listen, Janice, before you act on any belief, you have to be absolutely sure in your own mind. George and I had to prove something, and now I'm glad to say we have proved it.
Oh, I can't stand this any longer. If you have anything to say, go on and say it straight out. What was it you had to prove?
We had to prove to our own satisfaction that this pretended American who calls himself Professor Ann Smith...
Pretended American?
Who calls himself Professor Ann Smith?
We had to prove that this pretended American was no other than Karl Heinrich von Keist, the celebrated stage magician from the Winter Garden Theater in Berlin.
What?
Whose real job is to find the camouflage aerodrome near Bury St. Edmunds.
No.
He explained his own tricks very nicely, George. We'll swear out a warrant in the morning.
And so closes The Man Without a Body, starring John Sutton and George Zucco. Tonight's tale of suspense. This is your narrator, the Man in Black, who conveys to you Columbia's invitation to spend this half hour in suspense with us again next Tuesday, when the distinguished actress, Miss Agnes Moorehead, will be heard in one of her many brilliant characterizations. Starring with Miss Moorehead will be Miss Ellen Drew, who as Carol Linden tells the amazing story of Uncle Henry's Rosebush. The producer of these broadcasts is William Spear, with Ted Bliss, the director, Bernard Herrmann and Lucian Mahowick, conductor and composer, and John Dixon Carr, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Suspense. Autolite and its 96,000 dealers present radio's famous couple, Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, in Mr. Diogenes, a suspense play produced and edited by William Spear.
Well, here's a letter from Hap, still on vacation. Let me read this. Dear Harlow.
Dear Harlow, this is the life.
He must mean double life with those thrifty wide-gap Autolite resistor spark plugs that give you double the life as compared to ordinary spark plugs under equal service conditions.
I've been saving up my voice to tell you.
Saving? He knows that only wide-gap Autolite resistor spark plugs can give him greater gas savings.
That I feel like singing.
And with Autolite resistor spark plugs, his car engine idles as easily as a song.
Home, home on the range.
Ohm is right, and that exclusive built-in 10,000 ohm Autolite resistor, found only in Autolite resistor spark plugs, permits a wide spark gap that makes smoother performance, double life, and greater gas savings possible. So next time you visit your service station, ask your dealer to install a set of the new Autolite resistor spark plugs in your car. And remember, you're always right with Autolite.
And now, with Mr. Diogenes and the performance of Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, Autolite hopes once again to keep you in suspense.
It was last summer. David and Ricky were at camp, and Harriet and I were spending a few weeks at our old apartment in New York. The excitement began with 6 cents, a nickel and a penny. I didn't find out about the nickel until later, after it was all over, but, well, that's the way things go sometimes. Caesar didn't know about Brutus, Custer didn't know about Sitting Bull, and I didn't know about the nickel. The conversation must have gone something like this.
Hello.
This is Hector.
You crazy fool, I told you not to call me.
But no one could be listening in on your switchboard, my dear. As you realize, we are on the very brink. Before proceeding further, I must have your assurance there have been no changes.
I told you that.
Nelson is still the one.
Right. But gee, I'm getting worried.
Oh, calm yourself, my dear.
So he talks afterwards, so they start asking him questions.
You have my assurance he won't talk.
Yeah, but just...
No one ever got a straight story out of a dead man.
What?
Dear
Dead?
me, I thought you understood that.
No, I didn't. Listen, Hector, I don't want any part of this.
Unfortunately, my dear, you already have a part of it. Nelson is down the street in a tobacco shop at this very moment. We'll be good friends inside of 10 minutes. Goodbye.
You lose the bet, Eddie. You haven't gained a pound. Take a look at the card.
Oz, are you sure you had both feet on the scale?
You mean you're questioning my word, the word of an Eagle Scout emeritus?
Eagle Scout.
Troop 3, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. Scout's honor, see? Both feet on the scale. Now, as I recall, the bet was 2 bits against a can of pipe tobacco. I'll take Gold Nugget.
No dice. All out of Gold Nugget ever since they started that crazy radio program of theirs. Let's see. How about some of this? What's the matter?
See, that's a funny one.
Look, I'll refund your penny.
No, the card here. Hey, look at my fortune. Today will be the most memorable day of your life.
So what? So it's memorable.
Today's our anniversary, you know.
Yeah?
Oh, it's just a coincidence.
Sure.
Did you ever see a card like this before, Eddie?
Oz, every time a guy gets weighed, I don't run right quick and peek over his shoulder.
No, but the wording is so peculiar. The most memorable day of your life. Now, that's a pretty broad statement for a scale company to make.
Tell you what. If it turns out a bust, come back tomorrow and we'll dope out a nasty letter to the scale people.
Well, okay, Eddie. Thanks for the tobacco.
Forget it. So long, Oz.
So long. Most memorable day of your life. Oh, well. Kind of strange at that. Most memorable day of your life. I'm sorry. I was just thinking of
sir. My fault entirely. In a hurry, didn't look where I was going. Forgive me, please. My fault entirely. Should have looked where I was going. Sorry.
Hey, wait a minute. You dropped your wallet. Hey, mister. Hey, just a minute, will you?
Oh.
Here, you dropped your wallet.
Wallet? Oh, yes, I know.
It's lucky I caught up with you.
I'm quite aware I dropped my wallet, young man. Thank you so much.
You mean you make a hobby of dropping wallets?
You hit the nail on the head, sir. This is a red-letter day on my calendar. The most memorable day of my life.
Oh, well, it was... What did you say?
The most memorable day of my life, Mr.
Nelson. Ozzie Nelson.
Mr. Nelson. Allow me to introduce myself, sir. My name is Diogenes.
Diogenes?
Hector Diogenes. I seek the honest man.
Oh, well, that's very interesting, Mr. Diogenes.
The wallet, you see, is full of stage money. I have dropped it at the feet of 1,000 candidates, just as I did a moment ago. Allow me to congratulate you, Mr. Nelson. You are the first to pick it up and return it to me unhesitatingly. Oh, tell me, do you plan to be home tonight?
Well, as a matter of fact, no. It's our anniversary, and Mrs. Nelson and I plan to celebrate.
Oh, dear. Too bad, too bad. You'll simply have to change your plans. There's no other way.
I beg your pardon?
I admit, sir, my methods may seem a bit eccentric, but this I permit myself. With $5 million, a man may allow himself the luxury of eccentricity. My goal, my target, has never changed from the first. To discover the honest man, then to indoctrinate him with the wisdom of my ancient namesake, Diogenes the Cynic.
Well,
that hurdle passed, my fortune, my resources, everything are at his disposal.
But now, wait a minute, just a minute. Let me get the thing straight.
It's very simple. Here, in this leather-covered book, are the discourses of Diogenes, the wisdom of the greatest thinker the world has ever known in 20 short pages. Now, you will take this with you, Mr. Nelson, and commit it to memory tonight. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock here at this very place, we shall meet, and I will hear you recite. Now, time is of the essence, sir. Spend it well, spend it gloriously tonight at the feet of Diogenes the Cynic. Your fortune, your future, nay, the world itself, are within your grasp. And now, good day, sir.
Well, wait now. No, just a minute.
Good day
Mr.
and Godspeed. Good day.
Harriet? Harriet?
In here, dear.
Oh, hi.
Home a little early, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess so. How's the new hairdryer work?
Oh, wonderfully. See? All dry.
Oh, well, for once, I gave you something useful for Christmas.
You certainly did. Oh, gosh, I'm so excited about tonight.
Oh, that's nice.
Dinner, a show, and maybe dancing afterwards. Shouldn't I be excited?
Harriet, that brings up a very touchy problem.
Oh?
A strange thing happened to me today. Sort of weird, you might say. In fact, I don't know what to make of it.
Well, you've heard about that already.
About what?
The tickets.
Tickets?
Oh, I thought that's what you meant. Everybody in the building here got a free pair of tickets to South Pacific tonight.
You're kidding.
No, sir. They were stuck under all the front doors. No note or explanation, just a pair of tickets in a plain white envelope.
South Pacific? Holy small. They're worth a small fortune, you know. How come?
Nobody knows.
Well, but a thing like that just doesn't happen. There must be a reason. You say everybody got them?
Well, not quite. 12 apartments, 11 envelopes. 3 guesses who missed out.
Us?
Uh-huh. But I took it gracefully. I told everybody we were still going to celebrate our anniversary, even if we had to buy tickets to something.
Gosh. Harriet, does something about today strike you as kind of different?
Well, sure, it's our anniversary. That makes it different.
No, I mean something strange. You might even say memorable.
Memorable?
What I mean is if somebody happened to predict that today would be a very memorable day, all this would sort of bear him out, wouldn't it?
Ozzie, has Madame Zaza been reading your palm again?
Well, not Madame Zaza, but a scale. On my way to work this morning, I got on the scale at Eddie's.
Oh, I'll get it, dear. Oh, hello, Mrs. Pearson.
Mrs. Nelson, I hope you don't mind the intrusion. Hello, Mr. Nelson.
Hello,
I guess you heard Lemuel told my husband, Captain Pearson. Ship got in last night, and as usual, Lem's completely done in, but completely. I couldn't get Captain out tonight with a team of wild horses, so I want you to have these.
Oh, what's this?
The tickets.
To South Pacific?
Yes, I heard you folks missed out, and it seemed such a shame being your anniversary and all.
Oh, that's very sweet of you, Mrs. Pearson, but I should think your husband would
Not
love
the captain. No, sir. Home he is, and home he stays. So take him and have a good time. No skin off our noses. We're going to stay home tonight and watch the television. The fights are on, and Lem's never seen our new set, you know. Oh, and speaking of television, there was something I did want to mention, Mrs. Nelson. I hope you won't take offense.
Well, of course not. What is it?
It's that thing over there on the table.
The hairdryer?
Uh-huh. It's strange, but every time you turn it on, we get buzzing on our television. I was hoping while Captain's home you could use it daytimes instead of nighttimes.
Why, of course. I wish you'd told me before.
Oh, I don't mind for myself, but now with Lem home.
Oh, I'll remember, Mrs. Pearson, and thanks for the ticket.
Oh, sure, it's nothing at all. That's what neighbors are for, you know. Have a good time now and happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you, and good night, Mrs. Pearson.
Good night. Oh, boy, that was a 7-day blow.
I know, but she is sweet. Isn't it wonderful, dear? Now we can go after all.
Harriet, before we go any further, I'm going to have to ask your full cooperation.
That sounds like a speech.
It is, a short one. To state it as baldly as possible, I don't know whether we ought to go out and celebrate or stay home and study Greek. Harriet,
Say it again. Slower.
I said we have one of two alternatives. To go out to South Pacific or stay home and study Greek. Now that I hear, I realize it calls for a short explanation. See, while I was at the store...
Do you mind the radio, dear?
No. But what is Caesar to a cynic, but Zeus, who hath deputed him and whom he serves?
I'm glad you asked that.
Now, please,
It's 7:30, dear. I just thought you might like to know.
Get this. Right on the subject.
I'm listening.
A woman came upon Diogenes sitting before his hut during the revels of Bacchus. "Foolish man," she said, "why do you turn your back on this festival? Why rest idly here while others go to play at the theater?"
A very good question. What did Diogenes say?
And the man answered simply, "Woman, I am Diogenes, the cynic."
He was cheating. He didn't answer the question at all.
Well, what do we do?
I think it's a practical joke.
No, not necessarily. Nothing unusual about a loony millionaire, you know. I read about a woman who left $6 million to a cat. It's a gamble. If we go out tonight and he shows up tomorrow, we lose a fortune. On the other hand, if I stay home with Diogenes, I'll lose it anyway. I couldn't memorize this thing for $10 million. Where's your coat?
I'm in it. Here's your hat.
You're always ahead of me.
Here it is, the show you've been waiting for, the Gold Nugget Gold Rush.
Get the radio, will you, dear?
Yes, folks, here it is, the show that just loves to give money away. No refrigerators, no mink coats, no...
We can grab a taxi down by the drugstore. Did you lock the back door?
Yep. Say, maybe we better go down the stairs. It's quicker.
All right. Hey, look, the elevator's coming up.
Well, that's funny. I thought everybody was out to the show tonight.
Well, maybe it's the Pearsons.
No, they're on the first floor, right next to the lobby.
Well, look who's here, for heaven's sakes.
Good evening, Mr. Nelson.
Harriet, this is Mr. Diogenes, the man I was telling you about.
Oh,
how do you do?
And may I present my assistant, Mr. Mordecai Moran.
How do you do? We decided to go out after all, Mr. Diogenes. I sort of skimmed through the book and, well, frankly, I could never get it down pat by tomorrow morning.
Ozzy always was slow to memorize.
Yeah.
I have to write things down.
That's right.
But, Mr. Nelson, I thought I made that amply clear. You simply have to change your plans.
Well, I'm afraid it's too late for that. See, my wife has been very anxious to see the show. You know, it's...
He's stumped, boss. He don't get it. Does this help any, pal?
Mordecai, for the moment you may put away the gun.
Is this part of the joke, Ozzy?
Well, I hope so.
On the contrary, Mr. Nelson, this is most assuredly not a joke. I must warn you not to cry out or create a disturbance. If you are so rash as to do so, Mordecai knows he is free to use his gun with impunity.
Yeah, impunity.
Yes. Now, get in there now.
So you're...
Autolite is bringing you Ozzie and Harriet Nelson in Mr. Diogenes, tonight's production in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Now, let's see what else Hap has to say in his letter.
Yesterday, I visited the Grand Canyon. What a wide, gap.
Ah, good old Hap. All he can think of is the extra wide gap of Autolite resistor spark plugs that give you smoother engine performance on leaner gas mixtures, actually save you gas.
Sometimes I think of you back there telling folks about Autolite resistor spark plugs.
Ah, he's on the beam, all right, because only Autolite resistor spark plugs can give you greater gas savings, smoother performance, and double spark plug life.
And don't forget those Autolite bullseye sealed beam headlights.
Don't worry, I won't, because Autolite bullseye sealed beam headlights are the new safe headlights guaranteed to give light even when the lens is cracked or broken.
Harlow, you remember everything.
So, friends, see your Autolite dealer tomorrow and get a set of wide-gap Autolite resistor spark plugs for your car. Then, wherever you travel, whatever you drive, you're always right with Autolite.
And now, Autolite brings back to our Hollywood soundstage our stars, Ozzie and Harriet Nelson with Joseph Kearns in Mr. Diogenes, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
It took a little while to get rid of the notion that Mr. Diogenes was pulling a practical joke. He had just walked out of a comic strip somewhere. But he wasn't kidding. His little pig eyes had greed in them now. There was something cruel about his floppy, fat jowls and his thick lips. He's like one of those blown-up animals in Macy's Christmas parade. And Mordecai, he looked like he'd crawled out from under the reptile house at the Bronx Zoo. The minute the door closed, both of them headed for the radio.
It's a nice radio you have here. Very nice. Where would the switch be, Mr. Nelson? Oh, yes, sure.
Now listen to me. Before you settle down for the evening, whatever you want, we don't have. Can you understand that? It's some other Nelson. New York is crawling with Nelsons. There are more Nelsons in New York than there are in Sweden. Furthermore, we aren't rich.
Mordecai.
We don't collect plans for atomic projects.
That's enough, Mordecai. Everything in its place, Mr. Nelson, and in its proper time.
Now here it is, everybody, the Gold Nugget Gold Rush. Week number 16 of the Gold Nugget Gold Rush Bonanza.
Quiet,
Get this,
please.
now stands as the biggest prize ever offered on any giveaway program anywhere. Tonight, after 16 weeks, nobody has yet identified poor Mr. Hackaway, the man who smokes the wrong kind of pipe tobacco. And our Gold Nugget Gold Rush Bonanza jackpot stands at the all-time high of $58,000 in cash.
Ozzie, what is this?
I don't know, but I think I'm catching on.
Tonight, as usual, our phone call will go out to one of the thousands of discriminating men who long ago discovered the rich, bite-free mellowness of Gold Nugget pipe tobacco. And tonight, as usual, our Pony Express rider is waiting at his post with $58,000 in greenbacks in his saddlebags, ready to go if our contestant correctly guesses the identity of that unenlightened, misguided, long-suffering fella who smokes the wrong kind of pipe tobacco, poor Mr. Hackaway. Now, while we're getting Mr. Hackaway out of his wheelchair and up to the mic, stand by your phone.
Turn that down, Mordecai.
Yeah, boss.
Yeah. I couldn't help hearing you say you were catching on, Mr. Nelson.
Ozzie, they're calling you tonight?
Ask Mr. Diogenes.
Exactly. Perhaps you didn't realize, Mr. Nelson, how lucky you were.
Well, how did you find out about it?
Boy, shall I...
No, Mordecai. I don't think we need concern ourselves with the possibility either of these charming people will behave indiscreetly after it's over. I became acquainted a short time ago with the telephone operator on this program, Mr. Nelson, and she informed me, in return for a share of the proceeds, that you were selected early this week. It then became a simple problem of ensuring against intrusion by the other denizens of the building here.
That's where the tickets came from.
Precisely. And ensuring also that you would be at home at the time the call was made. Hence my little gambit with the wallet this morning. Now, attend me carefully. The call will come through in a moment. I shall take it. A word and outcry from either of you, and Mordecai shoots. Is that quite clear?
Yeah, but you know you'll never get away with it.
Enough already.
Yes, sir.
Here's the big moment now, folks. The phone call is going through, and while we're waiting for the connection, here once again is poor Mr. Hackaway. He scratches a match. He lights his pipe. He inhales. And of course, because it's the wrong kind of pipe tobacco, that's all there is to it. The rest is up to the lucky man who's getting tonight's call. Who is Mr. Hackaway?
All right. Steady now. Don't take your eyes off the motor car. Hello.
This is the Gold Nugget Gold Rush radio program, sir. For security reasons, we are identifying you only as Mr. O.N. Would you give me your name, please?
Oswald G. Nelson.
Fine, fine. You, sir, are our lucky contestant tonight. Is your radio tuned to our program, sir?
Indeed it is.
Good, good. Then you know about poor Mr. Hackaway. Have you any idea who he is?
I think so.
Remember, you only have one guess. If correct, our Gold Nugget Pony Express rider will arrive at your home with $58,000 in cash within the hour. I don't need to point out that's a load of hay. So don't hurry. Think carefully. Think, Mr. O.N. Take your time and think. Now, who is poor Mr. Hackaway?
Harpo Marx.
Harpo Marx! Harpo, you're absolutely correct. Harpo Marx it is. Congratulations, Mr. O.N. You've just won yourself $58,000 in cash. Our messenger is on his way. Oh, goodbye, Mr. O.N., and congratulations.
Yes, goodbye, sir.
All right, what happens now?
Mrs. Nelson and I shall remain here to receive the messenger. You will retire to the rear with Mordecai. All right, quickly now. Take him in back.
Well, he shoved me in the bedroom closet and locked the door. And I heard his steps fade off a little, probably to the bed across the room. A string hit me on the nose, and I remembered the light in the closet. It was 8:15. The messenger'd be here in a half hour, maybe less. After that, I didn't want to think about after that, so I tried to fix my mind on something else. And that's when my eye lit on something lying next to a hat box in Harriet's side of the closet. It was a new hairdryer. For some reason or other, this made me think of Captain and Mrs. Pearson.
Doggone this thing.
Lem, dear, it's as simple as ABC. Look.
I don't know what happened, Mary. All of a sudden, the picture listed heavy to port, and she began to spit at me.
Why, there's nothing to it. It's beyond me how you can drive a steamer, Captain, yet throw up your hands when it comes to a television. See this knob here?
Uh-huh.
This is for sound, and this is for your picture. Oh, dear.
You see? That's what happened before.
Why, I don't understand it. Let me... Oh, I know. It's Mrs. Nelson.
Is it?
But it can't be.
Can't it?
No, I gave her our tickets. They're out.
What are you talking about, Mary?
Her electric dryer does that. Maybe she changed her mind and stayed at home. I'll run right up there.
No, forget it. No use raising a hob over a little thing like that. How do you turn it off?
Well, here, let me. The fights don't come on for an hour anyway. She'll likely have her hair dry by then. Funny they didn't go to the show.
Wait a minute.
If I'd known that, I'd...
Mary.
What's the matter, Lem?
Wait, don't turn it off. Let me listen.
Ah, there's the messenger. Now remember, Mrs. Nelson, not a sign, not a move.
Go ahead.
Yes?
Oswald G. Nelson?
Yes, that's right.
Happy prize money to you. Happy prize money to you. Happy prize money, Mr. Oswald G. Nelson. From the Gold Nugget people to you. Here's your package, sir. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Who are those gentlemen with you?
These bums? These fellows are from the armored car people. Mr. Nelson, for security reasons, your name won't be released to the press until tomorrow afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
We suggest you tell no one about this until the money is deposited.
That's very sensible, very. Thank you, my good man. Thank you. Good night.
Yes, good night, sir.
Mordecai! Mordecai! We've got it! We've got it!
Ozzy, hold my hand, will you?
Sure.
Shut up. Mordecai, you bring the car around as quickly as possible, understand?
Yes, sir.
I don't want to seem nosy, but where are we going?
Mordecai and I are going to Cuba.
What about us?
Where are you going? Oh, yes, indeed. Where? That's a good question, but perhaps a little beyond us, don't you think? More a question for a metaphysician or a philosopher, I should say. Yes. Now, if you'll step out into the lobby, we'll... Who's that? I don't know.
Stand right there. Don't move lest I blow you to Davy Jones with this here seagoing 45.
Ozzy, it's Captain Pearson. Ozzy! Oh, dear, he's passed out.
Stars, Mrs. Nelson, you certainly lived a lifetime in the last hour. That clever husband of yours making a Morse code SOS with that hairdryer. I get the shakes when I think how close we come to turning the television off.
Me too. Who's that man with Ozzy?
I don't know. He come up just as Lemon, the officer, took off in the patrol car.
Oh, would you excuse me for a minute, Mrs. Pearson?
Sure, go ahead.
What are they doing?
I guess I figured it wrong then. I get $2.25, but if you say $1.79, well, I guess you ought to know.
Good. Shall I let you have it now? I just happen to have some spare change in my pocket.
Yo, I guess I'll be all right.
Okay. There's $1, 50, 75, and 4. 4 makes 79, right?
Right, and here's your package. All square.
All square. Thanks a lot, Mr. Nelson. Good night.
Good night.
Ozzy, you gave him the $58,000.
Well, sure, everything's settled now. It's all square.
Who was it?
Well, the income tax man.
Oh, no.
Come on, silly, let's find a taxi. We've still got time to make the second act.
Suspense, presented by Autolite. Tonight's stars, Ozzy and Harriet Nelson, with Joseph Kearns playing Mr. Diogenes.
Ozzy, I've been hearing you and Harriet on your H.J. Hines program, The Adventures of Ozzy and Harriet.
Oh, thanks.
And we've been listening to Suspense regularly.
You want to quit while you're even, Harlow?
No. I want to tell you about Autolite resistor spark plugs.
Look out, Ozzy. The man's trying to sell you something.
Oh, no, Harriet. Autolite resistor spark plugs sell themselves.
Really? Oh, then what do they need you for, Harlow, old boy?
Yes, you're talking yourself out of a job.
Maybe I should have quit while I was even.
Oh, come on, Harlow. Now, we want you to keep on working. What else is there to tell about your Autolite resistor spark plug?
Well, just this, Ozzy. They're one of more than 400 products made by Autolite for cars, trucks, planes, and boats in 28 plants, coast to coast. And these Autolite products include complete electrical systems, used as original equipment in many makes of America's finest cars: batteries, spark plugs, generators, coils, distributors, starting motors, and bullseye sealed beam headlights. All engineered to fit together perfectly, work together perfectly, because they're a perfect team. So, friends, don't accept electrical parts supposed to be as good. Ask for and insist on Autolite, original factory parts at your neighborhood service station, car dealer, garage, or repair shop. Remember, you're always right with Autolite. Next Thursday for Suspense, Rosalind Russell will be our star. The play is called Consideration, and it is, as we say,
a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Tonight's suspense play was produced and edited by William Spear and directed by Norman MacDonald. Music for Suspense is composed by Lucien Moraweck and conducted by Lud Gluskin. Mr. Diogenes is an original play for radio by Harold Swanton. In the coming weeks, you will hear such stars as Kirk Douglas, Marlena Dietrich, and Richard Widmark. Don't forget, next Thursday, same time, Autolite will present Suspense, starring Rosalind Russell.
You can buy Autolite resistor or regular spark plugs, Autolite stay-full batteries, Autolite electrical parts at your neighborhood Autolite dealers. Switch to Autolite. Good night.
From Maine to California and in far-off overseas outposts, the USO flag is flying once again. Those of us back home can now be sure that the USO is taking good care of our sons and brothers and loved ones on active duty with America's armed forces. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. Autolite and its 98,000 dealers bring you Mr. John Hodiak in tonight's presentation of Suspense.
Tonight, Autolite presents the story of two men who could really talk, a young man and an old man. Naturally enough, they were liars. They also happened to be bank robbers. The story is based on fact and called The Big Heist. Our star, Mr. John Hodiak. Well, hello there, Sheriff.
Oh, hello, Harlow. Say, now, ain't that Autolite Stay Full the best battery that ever set a car perking?
Well, it sure is, Sheriff. The Autolite Stay Full is the famous battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. It's the battery with fiberglass retaining mats protecting the power of every positive plate to reduce shedding and flaking and give that great battery longer life, as proved by tests conducted according to accepted life cycle standards. Who says different, Sheriff?
Why, nobody, Harlow. I just can't find nobody as needs convincing about the Autolite Stay Full.
You're so right, Sheriff. So, friends, visit your nearest Autolite battery dealer. He services all makes of batteries, and he has an Autolite Stay Full for your car. To quickly locate him, call Western Union by number
and ask for me, Operator 25. I'll tell you the name of your nearest Autolite battery dealer where you can get an Autolite Stay Full.
the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite. And now, Autolite presents The Big Heist, starring Mr. John Hodiak, hoping once again to keep you in suspense.
Yeah, sure. I work with John Barry on the Colfax National Trick. He's the best in these bank bits, you know. Of course, everybody knows that. He had it cased right up to where he could tell you what the guy in small loans had for breakfast that morning. If it was a John Barry job, you can figure it was first class. Good. Right. Know what I mean? Yeah, believe I will. Thanks. Much obliged. You see, I've been hanging around that pool room for a week or so, knocking off this one and that one, picking up enough to get by on. It was, let me see, 4 days ago. Thursday. This bald-headed gent had been sitting there a half hour or better watching me practice. I'd seen him around before. I knew he'd get up and talk to me pretty soon.
Hey.
What's the matter?
That's pretty good.
Just luck.
Don't kid me.
I'm not.
You like 8-ball?
Well, I'm willing to try anything.
Swell. Play for $1?
I don't know.
What's the matter? Have you got $1?
I'm looking at the way you picked out that cue. You must be pretty good.
I'm no good at all.
Now, let's hold off playing for $1 right now. Just a friendly game.
Well, suit yourself. But you'll be sorry when you see how I play. I'm really no good. You wait, you'll see.
He was a lollipop. If he'd thrown away the cue and used a baseball bat, he'd done better. Every shot, I thought he was going to tear the felt right off the table. But I let him win the first 4 games, and I could tell he felt pretty good about it. I miscued and passed up shots that a 10-year-old kid could have figured. I only had $5 to my name, but I knew I was going to have at least 25 of his before I finished with him.
Okay, this will only take a minute.
Uh-oh.
All of you, over against that wall. Come on, let's hustle it up. Come on, boys, let's not waste a lot of time.
Hey, what's up?
Looking for vags, I guess.
Huh?
Getting a road gang together. They like to pick up anybody who needs a shave.
Uh-oh. Come on now, you two. Get over here.
Right against the wall, boys. That's it.
Let's knock off the chatter, huh? Just keep it quiet.
I want identification on all of you. Driver's license, social security card, something that'll tell us what your name is, where you live, and where you work. Take 'em out. Come on, boys.
Hey, I'm in trouble.
Huh?
No address here.
Boy, you are in trouble.
Shut up down there. How many times have I got to
This your address, Barney? 212 16th?
Yes, sir.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a bricklayer.
Where do you work?
Masterson Construction Company.
Why aren't you working today?
I'm sick.
Okay. Let's see it. No, not the wallet, just the card. Carl Weisenbach?
Yeah.
Work, Carl?
No, just sort of passing through town. You can see I live in Philly.
I can see. How do you live, Carl?
I save my money.
This one.
Okay, come on.
Hey.
You know what it's all about.
Let's have it, buddy. James Scott?
That's right, Sergeant.
What's this Salt Lake City?
Well, that's where I live.
He's with me now. We live together at 516 Mariondale, number 14.
What's your name?
Martin Collins.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm an electrician.
Yeah. What do you do?
I help him. I'm learning the trade.
Here? In this place?
Oh, guys got to relax, Sergeant. We just finished a big wiring job for an outdoor billboard outfit.
Why?
17 days hanging by our toes on those things. You try it sometime.
And this is our first day off since the beginning of last month. Right?
You betcha. That's the truth, Sergeant.
Okay, here. You. Where do you work?
Man, I own this place. That's where I work.
Thanks, Cullen.
Don't
Where's
mention
your
it,
license?
Scotty.
That's about the way it started. Collins turned out to be a little quicker than I first sized him up. I could have talked my way out of it, I guess, but then he just might have saved me 10 days for no visible means. After the cops talked to everybody and hauled a few down, we went back to the table.
Well, that's that.
Hey, aren't you going to let me get even?
You'd never get even with me, boy.
What?
Had me picked, didn't you, Scott? Just like that bus driver you had right here on the same table 3 days ago.
What?
Oh, you were going to let me win the first 4. Then you were going to turn into a regular woolly hoppy and really let me have it. It had gone up from $1 to 5, then 10. Isn't that the way you're going to work it now, huh?
Well, I'd just like to try for my $3 again.
Come on, boy. Who you kidding? Own up now.
Okay. I had you picked. I could still give you a game, though.
I tell you, I invented the game. You'd be wasting your time. You have been wasting your time.
Have I? 5, 10, $15 a day around here. Not bad, I'd say.
How could you go for $10,000 in one day, huh?
Sounds good. But you'll have to lend me some overalls, because I know I'm going to have to work real hard for that kind of money.
We need a third guy.
For what?
You want to meet somebody?
Sure. Why not?
Hang up your cue, boy. John Barry.
Hello.
This is Jim Scott, John.
Hiya.
Come on in, Jim. Tell me where you come from.
Salt Lake City.
Nice place, Salt Lake. How long you been in town?
A week or better.
What are you doing in this part of the country?
Well, I don't know if I have...
It isn't going to hurt you. Just answer questions, Scott. Go on, tell him.
You sit down, son.
Oh, thanks.
I just like to know a little about the people I work with, that's all. Now, again, what are you doing here?
Looking for work, I guess. I drove a truck on my last job.
Do you know anybody in town?
Couple of people.
Who?
Oh, girl named Melva. We sort of, got acquainted.
A week in town, and you already got yourself a girl. That's good, isn't it, Martin?
Pretty good, John.
Well, you're a personable young fellow. You have a nice way about you. I don't see why not. Can you use a little money?
Well, he said something about $10,000. That's not a little money.
It might be a lot more than that. At least 10.
Oh, sure. I could use it. What do I have to do? Hold up a bank?
No, I'll do that part of it. You just help me.
Huh?
Yes, it's a bank job. You ever hear of me, son? John Barry?
No.
Well, I'm the best in the business, and I always pick good men to work with me. Now, you look like the kind of boy who knows how to use his head. I'd like to have you in on it. You'll probably go far in this world.
Not sticking up a bank, I won't. I'll go to jail. That's what'll happen.
I thought you looked him over, Martin.
I did, John. It's a surprise to me. Would you rather hang around those pool rooms the rest of your life?
Oh, I've never done anything like a bank.
What have you done, son?
30 days. 90 days once, and I didn't like it.
Oh, I see. And I don't blame you. But no policeman's going to bother you on this. You aren't going to wind up in any jail. Nobody's going to jail. You do your part of it exactly the way I show you, and you come out clean, safe, nice and rich. Now, how does that sound?
Oh, it sounds pretty good.
How about that girl, Melva?
Yeah, that's her name.
She pretty?
Sure.
Well, she likes you, I'll bet. Huh, Martin?
Sure.
Now, you and I both know that one thing ladies understand is money. The more you have, the more they understand. It's the way they're built. Isn't that the way it is, Martin?
Sure is, John.
And you know that, too, son. Now, the money you get from this would help you a lot. Or maybe you wouldn't want to spend it on her. But then at your age, a good fling is something to remember all your life. A new car, nice place to live, things like that make this old world not such a bad place to live in. Maybe you'd even like to go into business.
Well, I thought about that, too.
Sure you have. When the whole thing's over, you'll never see Martin here again. You'll never see me again. But you'll have a big package of money to remember us by. to do with what you like. And I can tell by looking at you right now that you have some pretty good ideas on how to handle money now. Isn't that right?
Well, what would I have to do?
Just pay attention to what you're told, Scott.
Martin's right. Years from now, somebody might ask you, or you just might want to tell them. You can say you were with John Barry on the bank job. You can say you started when it was low needle and you rode it all the way. Of course, if you don't want to work with me, you can walk right out that door and forget we ever talked about this. But when you read in the papers about how it went off and how much was taken, you'll feel pretty silly passing it up. Now, if you can use the money and follow instructions, Mutt and I would like to have you in on it. Wouldn't we?
Ah, we sure would.
Well, when are you going to do it?
Tomorrow afternoon.
You want to help us tip over this bank, or don't you?
What do you say?
10,000?
Probably a lot more. Are you in, son?
I'm in.
Autolite is bringing you Mr. John Hodiak in The Big Heist. Tonight's presentation in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
You know, Harlow, I really go for that Autolite Stay Full battery.
Well, millions of motorists do, Sheriff. They all agree that for power, dependability, and convenience, you just can't beat the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use.
And don't forget, it has a life longer than a Texas Panhandle.
That's because every positive plate in the Autolite Stay Full is protected by fiberglass retaining mats to reduce shedding and flaking for longer life, as proved by tests conducted according to accepted life cycle standards.
Yes, sir. That Autolite Stay Full is top for my money.
And your Autolite battery dealer is tops when it comes to servicing all makes of batteries. And he has an Autolite Stay Full for your car if a replacement is needed. To quickly locate him, call Western Union by number
and ask for Operator 25. I'll tell you the name of your nearest Autolite battery dealer where you can get an Autolite Stay Full.
the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite. And now, Autolite brings back to our Hollywood soundstage Mr. John Hodiak in Elliot Lewis's production of The Big Heist, a dramatic report well calculated to keep you in suspense.
This bird who built the Colfax National had a pretty nifty idea. He set it back off the street so you can just shove your car right up in front of the place like it was a drive-in. No parking problem. There's plenty of room all the time to get in or out. And I guess that's the main reason John Barry fixed it.
Just a minute, Scott.
Huh?
Relax.
Well, I thought we were going in and look the place over.
It's been looked over. I've been at it for the last 8 months.
Oh, okay.
See that guard in front, son?
The one looking at us?
He's looking over us, son. He's watching that big clock across the street. He always does.
Huh?
For some reason, 2 minutes mean a lot in that man's life. The clock across the street runs 2 minutes fast. There are clocks on all 4 walls of the bank that are right on the nose, but when it gets near quitting time, he goes by that clock in front of the jewelry store. Now, in about 30 seconds, he'll rope off the front doors of the bank, and no more customers will be allowed in today. You'll have to keep him busy out there tomorrow.
You're worried about one guard out front? Well, what about all those tellers and clerks inside? Must be 25 of them.
There's 33 people inside that bank.
Well, who's going to keep them busy while I'm keeping him busy? Suppose one of them wants to turn in an alarm.
You're asking too many questions, Scott. Why don't you just listen?
That's all right, Martin. I don't want to worry about anything. Son, there are only 4 tellers inside that bank who'll know it's being robbed. We'll be 10 blocks away before the rest of them find out.
Yeah, but I can see 5 cages in there.
That's right. We only have to worry about the first 4. The 5th one won't be working tomorrow. He's a war veteran with a hero complex. The only one in the whole bunch who'll try for the alarm. But we're lucky. The poor man has a spinal injury. Every Friday afternoon, he leaves at 2 o'clock to go over to the Veterans Hospital on Brainbridge Boulevard for outpatient treatment. They just closed his cage.
He hurt bad?
Anything in the spine's bad. Yeah. What'd they tell you?
The guards are open off the doors.
2 minutes to 3 by the bank clocks. 3 o'clock by that one over there. You and I'll park the car here tomorrow at 5 minutes to 3.
I'll already be inside the bank waiting for John.
Martin goes in at 2:45. I meet him inside at 2 minutes to 3. Martin covers me while I work the cages. At 3, by that clock across the street, you'll go up to that guard and keep him busy. I don't want him to turn around or worry about anything that's going on inside. You understand, son?
Yeah, sure.
You'll have to keep him busy for at least 3 minutes.
How?
You talk pretty good, Scotty. That's why we picked you.
Martin's right, son. You just go up to him and say anything you like, just so you keep him busy. This time tomorrow, you'll be a pretty well-set young fella. Doesn't that make you feel good, son?
I don't know where I got the notion that a bank robber always wore a dark suit and pulled a hat over his eyes. It was pretty hard to convince myself that an old guy, a fat guy, and me were going to heist the Colfax National. But when we got back to the hotel room and John Barry began telling me all he knew about the insides and outsides of that bank, and the people who ran it, and the people who built it, and the people who owned it, I began to get a lump in my throat for the bonding company. He had diagrams. He had blueprints. He knew the alarm system better than the Ginzo who put it in. And there's a certain safe company back in Ohio that'd make him a vice president tomorrow for what he could tell them about their own time vaults. But until 8 that night, he kept me busier than a flea on a fat man telling me about everything. I felt pretty good about the whole thing. And I was just getting ready to go up to the room he rented for me when it happened.
Here you are, son. Go ahead, son. Take it. It's yours.
What? You didn't say anything about a gun. I thought all I had to do was talk to that guard.
That's right, son. But I'm giving you this right now. I want you to have it.
Well, 45.
Fine piece, that.
Is it loaded?
Oh, yeah. You better go upstairs and get yourself some sleep, son. Big day tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Now, I'll tell you this right now. That gun was something I hadn't counted on. John told me I wouldn't have to use it. Just the same, it worried me. You know, I just wasn't used to it. I went up to my room and tried to call Melva, but she was out. I lay down a while, and I couldn't sleep somehow. So I just went for a walk, thinking about everything. And I had the gun with me, right in my pocket. It was almost midnight when I got back. I didn't go to my room. I went right to his. He was lying on top of his bed in the dark, but his eyes were wide open, and he had all his clothes on. An old guy, smoking his cigar, listening to the radio in his window.
Is that you, son?
Yeah.
Pretty music, huh? Very nice stuff that man wrote.
Yeah. Look, John, I'm out.
Out of the job, son?
Yeah. Here's your gun back. I don't want it. I thought of just scramming out, but I wanted to tell you because you've been good to me today.
I see. Mind if I ask you what made you change your mind about tomorrow?
Oh, I don't know what it was. I just decided not to, that's all.
Got the coffee, John. Thought you're in bed, Scott.
Martin, Scott says he isn't going with us tomorrow.
What?
That's right. And there's no sense in you getting steamed up about it. I'm just not going to do it. What's the whole thing in a shell hole?
Now, look, Scott, we got to have you on this job. It's too late to get anybody else. John spent 8 months laying it out. It's fixed for tomorrow afternoon.
No, Martin, just a minute. Scott's a pretty good boy. We both know that. If he has a reason to back out and quit, it must be a pretty good reason. Isn't that right, son?
Yeah.
You see, Martin, he thought it over.
Oh, but, John, if it doesn't come off the way we planned it...
Wait a minute, Martin. Son.
What?
I'd like to ask you again. Why?
Oh, I just don't want it.
Is it the gun, son? Is that it?
I don't want to shoot nobody.
Oh, well, no. Martin, have we ever shot anybody?
No.
You see, son, no sense in worrying about that. Now, Martin carried a gun for what, 11 years, Martin?
At least that.
Never fired it. Martin, show him your gun.
Sure.
See, practically rusted, isn't it? Now, I've carried one for 22 years, never had occasion to use it at all. When I gave you that gun tonight, son, I just thought I was going to make you feel good, honestly.
Well, you didn't make me feel good.
I see that now. But believe me, I just gave it to you as a sort of insurance. You don't even have to carry it if you don't want to. But look here, you take it back. Go ahead, keep it tonight. If you don't want to take it tomorrow, that's all right. Now, how's that?
Well,
You go upstairs and get a good night's rest, sir. You don't have anything to worry about. Tomorrow we'll all have a big breakfast and forget this ever happened.
We left the hotel at 2:20, and we dropped Martin Collins 6 blocks from the Colfax National. He was to take a streetcar up there. After that, John Barry and I drove around to kill 12 minutes. At 2:45, we headed for the bank ourselves, and we pulled up in the lot at exactly 7 minutes to 3. You'd have thought I'd been through a dozen of them the way I felt. And then, just like that, it started.
You all right?
Maybe I can't keep him busy for 3 minutes. What then?
No, take it easy. Of course you can keep him busy. Talk to him. You know how to do that.
But what if I can't?
Now, look, that guard's name's Edward Jameson. He makes $68 a week standing there looking at that clock across the street and telling people why they can't come in once he's put the rope up. That's the big moment in his life. It's the only thing he's got to live for. Play on that, son.
Yeah, but suppose
Here, you forgot this.
Hey, no. I left that back in my room.
Yeah, I know, and so I brought it in case you might need it. Slip it inside your coat.
Well...
Atta boy. All right, on time. Go after him as soon as he puts up the ropes.
I don't want this thing.
Son, that man's got to be busy. If you can't keep him busy talking, you shove that thing right under his nose. It'll look terrible to him, even bigger than it is. Remember, he doesn't want to get all shot up. Good luck.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. After hours.
You mean it's 3 already?
Afraid it is. There's the clock.
Well, that must be fast. I got 2 minutes out.
I guess you're slow, sir.
Oh, you couldn't sneak me in, I suppose.
Strictly against the house rules, no, sir.
Well, look, one customer more or less isn't going to make any difference, is it?
I'm sorry. Once the rope's up, I can let them out, but I can't let them in.
Well, this sure puts me in a spot.
Is it a deposit?
No, I have a piece of property going through escrow now. I just found out the man I sold it to is declaring bankruptcy. Escrow's up at 10 tonight, and I don't want him to have my property. Would you?
I should say not.
Well, look, if you could just let me in there to talk to the escrow people, I can get myself out of a lot of trouble. What do you say?
Well, I think I can help you.
Good. I'll appreciate it.
Now, look. Mr. Evers, head of the escrow division, is here until 5. Now, the operator isn't supposed to...
I was looking over his shoulder, past him, inside the bank. I could see John Barry in front of one of the teller's cages, helping himself to a bag full of money. Martin Collins was standing right in the middle of the lobby, his right hand stuck down inside his coat pocket. Every one of the tellers were looking at him with a sort of wide eye, like they couldn't believe it. Old John was nudging somebody in front of him. Looked like a vice president. And they just kept going from cage to cage where he'd pick up the cash. Nobody made a move. I don't think any of the customers that were in there, or anybody else outside the tellers, knew the place was being robbed.
Well, what is it? Aren't you going to call Mr. Evers?
Huh?
Well, what are you looking...
Move back!
Hey!
Back! Or I'll let go!
Look, are you crazy?
What happened, Scotty? Why'd you shoot him? It just went off. It just went off.
Get out of here, boys.
I didn't mean to shoot him. I didn't want to shoot him. You guys know that, don't you?
All right, shut up, Scotty.
I didn't want to. Honest, I didn't want to. I didn't want to do any of this. You guys made me do it. You taught me to do it. That's what you did. And I'm going to tell them, too. I'm going to tell them everything you made me do, and then they won't do anything to me.
Never mind, Martin. Over there. He's got a gun on us.
Oh. Hey, they're coming.
That's right. And you can tell them anything you want.
All right, all of you. Come out of that car one at a time with your hands up.
Well, suppose I should never have given him the gun, Martin.
I suppose so, John.
Come out or we'll open fire.
Come on, son. Let's see what these police officers want to talk about.
This John Barry, and remember, he's the best, looked like any old geezer you'd find filling prescriptions behind a drugstore counter or reading books in a public library on Sunday afternoons. But let me tell you, he had it. Every time he opened his mouth, he made sense. He was pretty good at that old chatter, too. In fact, I'd say he was just about that much better than me.
Suspense. Presented by Autolite. Tonight's star, Mr. John Hodiak.
This is Harlow Wilcox speaking for Autolite. And here once again is our star, John Hodiak. Well, John, it was good to have you back on Suspense after a long absence.
Thanks, Harlow. And thanks to Autolite for inviting me. Suspense is truly radio's outstanding theater of thrills. And I consider it a privilege to be a part of it.
And, John, it's satisfying to be a part of the Autolite family, for Autolite is one of the great names in American industry.
Indeed it is, Harlow.
World's largest independent manufacturer of automotive electrical equipment, the Autolite family includes 98,000 distributors and dealers in the United States and thousands more in Canada and throughout the world.
Well, no wonder I find Autolite service wherever I go.
Right you are, John. And friends, remember, every Autolite product is backed by constant research and precision built to the highest standards of quality and performance. So, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
Next week, the story of a man who had everything to live for and committed murder to prove it to himself. The story is called Joker Wild, and our stars will be Kathy and Elliot Lewis. That's next week on Suspense. Suspense is produced and directed by Elliot Lewis, with music composed by Lucian Morowick and conducted by Lud Gluskin. The Big Heist was written for Suspense by E. Jack Newman. In tonight's cast, Herb Butterfield was John and Joseph Kearns, Collins. Featured in the cast were Junius Matthews, Charles Calvert, Ted Bliss, Bert Holland, and Jerry Hausner.
John Hodiak is currently appearing in Allied Artists' Battle Zone.
Remember, next week, Kathy and Elliot Lewis in Joker Wild.
You can buy Autolite Stay-Full batteries, Autolite electrical parts, and Autolite resistor or standard type spark plugs at your neighborhood Autolite dealers. Switch to Autolite. Good night.
200%. That's how much mail volume increases during the holiday season. If you want to be certain that packages and greetings reach their destination before Christmas, mail early. Mail now. This is the CBS Radio Network.